Patrick, welcome to the show.
What's up, Brian?
Dude, I love the skateboards in the back. For all listeners, before we hit record, we were going down memory lane. I actually had a half pipe in my backyard as well, growing up in Tahoe, and talking about some of our old boards and decks. And I actually have my Steve-O and Johnny Knoxville signed skateboard hanging on my wall, but nothing like your collection, man. That's freaking awesome.
Thanks. Thanks.
That's great.
Maybe towards the end I'll have to skate a little bit.
That's right. That's right. Do a kickflip. So we've got Black Hat coming up in a few weeks, Black Hat 2024 in Las Vegas. And I just thought I'd get, kind of pick your brain a little bit at a high level. You guys are doing some great research over there at VulnCheck. You're doing some amazing things. And, what are you seeing in terms of, let's start with like threat actors, right? That's everyone likes talking about threat actors. What are you seeing out there? What's hot right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think persistence is the main thing. I don't know if I'd go into any specific threat actor, from my perspective, but it's like we're seeing continued persistence across threat actors and activity. So I think this year we've seen some big ones. And I'm offhand, I'm like trying to remember. I just took a 2 week vacation. Some of the things that come to mind. I think we saw Black Basta pretty active this year.
Okay.
But across the board, like, persistence is the big thing. I think a combination of continuing to use outdated vulnerabilities, initial access vulnerabilities, new 0 days, pretty much all the above. And I think, threat actors are going to be creative, and they're going to find a way into environments. And then, also pretty significant events with ransomware, specifically in healthcare, is a pretty common theme. So you look at United Health, and then my wife happens to work at Ascension. So I think a combination of, like, seeing both sides of that world are quite interesting, from an external perspective, just the news, but then also hearing the real impact of employees in healthcare too, right now.
Yeah, you made an interesting point there. You're talking about some of the old vulnerabilities, stuff that's, been out there a long time, known exploits, but also known patches, known ways to remediate it. And
Yeah.
certainly like on the IoT side, just you'll find printers with 10-year-old, sometimes 50-year-old vulnerabilities, security cameras, voice over IP phone, stuff that the firmware was updated when the thing was like bolted to the wall, from when the folks rolled up in a van a decade ago, and that was the last
Yeah.
time it was ever touched. It, you know, is that still like one of the leading avenues people are getting in? It's just these old stodgy things that they just know people haven't updated them. They don't have to go after some 0 day, right? They can just use something that's been out there forever.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality, when I talk to my friends who are pen testers, for instance, like, yeah, man, I've been using the same technique for the last 5 years, leveraging like SMB to get into Windows, using some SQL techniques. Like, it's not rocket science. And the fact is, it's pretty low hanging fruit. And, there's a difference. Like, a modern tech company, you might not see these things because they don't have the legacy tech debt.
Yeah.
But most organizations, healthcare, manufacturing, government, different industries, like, the reality is they still have a lot of legacy technology hanging out there, outdated applications that were written by some program developer 10 or 20 years ago that might not even be alive anymore. And they don't have the source code for it, right? So there's just so many scenarios as to why we're in the situation that we're in today, in combination with the persistence of threat actors.
Yeah. Well, let's pivot a little bit and talk about some of the research that's going on. You guys are really, I think, leading in a lot of the interesting bone research out there. Uh, what's happening? What are you guys looking into?
Yeah, coming up for Black Hat, I'm currently getting started on looking at exploitation trends over the first half of the year. I haven't dug too deep. I just came back from 2 weeks of vacation. But generally speaking, like, the trends look to show there's more evidence of exploitation, more CVEs, more organizations are disclosing Exploitation, and that's a good thing. Like the more the world has visibility into what's being exploited by threat actors is really, really important. One of the things I published for May was just taking a look at exploitation evidence, and we saw a pretty large trend of more disclosure of exploitation.
Mm.
But it was interesting; it coincided with the conference of RSA. So I think a lot of times what's happening also is research reports come out for RSA, and I think we're going to see another wave for Black Hat. And now information is becoming public from different security organizations across the world that people didn't have visibility into. So I think that's a consistent trend is both on the vendor side as well as the security research side. We're just seeing more and more disclosure of exploitation, which helps everyone, right? As far as getting ahead of the actors and making sure that they're patching the right things.
Where can folks find that research that you and your team are working on?
Well, yeah, the one in May I published on the VulnCheck blog. So I think you can go to vulncheck.com/blog, and there's a ton of research throughout the year. I try and publish a ton. And then I also publish a lot on my LinkedIn. Patrick Garrity on LinkedIn. You can find a lot of the research as well.
Very cool. Last question I wanted to hit, because this has just been coming up everywhere, which is prioritization frameworks. So, you got CVEs, you got CVSS scores, you've got all these different versions and everything. Some people are mixing it with solutions like Sevco on the asset side to say, okay, I've got these CVEs, but I also know the presence and state of my security controls, maybe applications, identity, business context, all these things kind of swirl together. So, where do we stand? And there must be at least a million prioritization frameworks out there today, but being that you're at ground zero, where do you see this kind of going and evolving?
Well, I think so. So first off, context is important. Most of my time is spent on threat, and so I think asset context is incredibly important. Where is something located on the internet? Is it internet exposable or reachable? There's so many things, as the asset critical. That's really important. Most of my time personally is spent on, the threat side of vulnerabilities. And so I think the biggest thing that I'm looking at, and something I'm looking at publishing too, is like CVSS for any sense of prioritization framework scoring wise is pretty much complete trash. Like we as an industry need to just move away from anything resembling a CVSS score. I think that generally speaking, people gravitate towards scoring, but it continues to fail them.
Because I think score equals priority. It's an easy connection to make, and it's not necessarily true.
Correct. And so, I think generally speaking, it's more about understanding like what is the real risk in threat, which is taking the impact of a vulnerability. And I'm thinking of the equation, right? The threat, the likelihood, and so forth. And so, for me personally, like I look at frameworks like stakeholder specific vulnerability categorization, and I think we have to drive more towards human logic. Like if something's known to be exploited, we probably should fix it. We should fix it much faster if it's public on the internet. If something has trending proof of concept code, like we probably should fix it if it's on the internet immediately. If it's not on the internet, maybe I have more time. And so I think logical things, hey, if a vulnerability now is in a weaponized state, so it's maybe a POC and Metasploit or VulnCheck or other exploit frameworks, like I might want to prioritize that higher. So I think thinking a little bit more logically about these things is going to help, helps people. Opposed to trying to get it into a scoring system that's developed by some third party. I don't mean to criticize that. I think like the tools that often are incorporating asset and threat and all those things are in a better place naturally to score the vulnerabilities. So I don't want to completely criticize all scoring systems, but I think the concept of like downstream scoring the impact of a vulnerability with something like CVSS it has proven itself as probably like actually more of a negative to the industry than actually something useful or helpful.
It's all about
So
context, right? It's all
yep.
about that context, and hopefully not just technical, but business operations context and everything, time frame, geo, all these other variables. So
Yeah, there's well, and I think the other thing is like not getting ahead of yourself and trying to do everything.
yeah,
So naturally, I think like threat is a pretty easy one to start with from a context perspective, and then asset context are probably the two biggest things that are going to make the biggest impact.
awesome, man. Well, hey, some great facts. Hey, I'm loving the mini ramp. You want to
Yeah.
you
Oh
want to just
gosh,
skate it for a minute?
gosh. Last time I did this, I injured myself. So
The
let's
online
try
sesh.
let's try and go injury free.
All right.
I don't know if you can see me. I'm hoping.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I can see you. Nice.
oh, I'm small
Ah,
smoke there.
awesome, man. Well,
Oh,
hey,
fun
thanks
as
for that,
always.
Patrick.
Yeah,
It's
dude.
great having you. And are you going to be down at Black Hat in Vegas?
I'll be at Black Hat. We have a party we're throwing. It's called what is it called? Security Wasteland.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be fun. It's at the Atomic Museum. So if anybody wants to join, you can find that at VulnCheck.com.
And the Atomic Museum is just awesome in general. It's just got some really cool stuff. And yeah, certainly check out Patrick, the VulnCheck crew. Sevco is going to be out there as well. We're going to be hanging with our friends from VulnCheck. So come check it out. And thanks so much. And if you guys want to read any of the research, of course, check out Patrick's LinkedIn and go to VulnCheck and check out the blog.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.